This Jamal Khashoggi thing is crazy. Dyze in your house. Exclusively on East Coast Radio. We got one goal for the next 2 months. One goal for 2018. And that's to take back the House. And we're only going to do that by going out and voting. I mean, I know the civil rights movement didn't exactly end racism, but I thought we were further along than this. It's a known fact that the reason I don't have any friends is solely because I'm a liberal who cares about other people and doesn't want to see brown people and women suffer at the hands of old, rich, white men who have been in power for way too long. Nazis? Bad. Free press? Good. The most dangerous thing you can do is sit back and think that America has no chance of ever turning into an autocracy or some sort of authoritarian regime when you have a fascist regime on the rise right now, unchecked by Congress, which makes November the most important election of our lives. J Porks, East Coast Radio, Dyze in your house, J Porks podcast. We must resist or we won't exist. Taking it back in November. East Coast Radio for the least heard voices.
Representing Staten Island.
These Staten Island boys are no joke.
Hey yo, who's in the house? Dyze in your house. What is the word, peeps? What goes on? It is Thursday night, and usually Friday, but today we're coming to you on a Thursday with another action-packed edition of Dyze in your house. This has become the second of 2 podcasts that come to you exclusively on East Coast Radio for the least heard voices. What we're doing on these podcasts, on Dyze in your house, and on the J Porks podcast, which comes to you every Sunday, is we are fighting fascism. We are making people aware that there is an authoritarian regime rising in that country, and it is a slippery slope of where we're going. And November 6th is the most important day of the year. It's the most important day of your life right now. Because we have to get out there, we have to vote, and we have to take back at least one branch of our government to start the road to repair and repair the democracy that is the United States of America. Because the kleptocracy, the authoritarianism, it's rising. It's rising, and we need to stop. We need to stop 1984 from becoming not a fictional book, but a real-life thing that happened. We have to stop looking at third world countries and say, hey, that kind of reminds me of here. Not third world countries, places like Saudi Arabia with a royal family. We're going to be talking about Saudi Arabia in a second. I just want to remind everybody that you can go to patreon.com/JPorks to become a East Coast Radiohead. That's to help us out here on East Coast Radio. And what is that going to do? That's going to get you personalized artwork. That's going to get you shout-outs on the podcast. That's going to get you input on what you want to hear J Porks, what you want to hear me cover. Also, you can also interact with me on a personal level. We can become friends. That could be a thing. Also, will be exclusive content for Patreons. So if you are a East Coast Radiohead, you will get weekly bonus content that doesn't go to anybody else. Videos. We have stuff. So just go to patreon.com/JPorks. Find out how to become a East Coast Radiohead. Check it out. Okay. Big week. It's always a big week. Lots of stuff happening. It started on Monday, or I don't know if that was Monday or Tuesday, but the Supreme Court ruled that they ruled that Native Americans who don't have an address still need to get voter IDs, even though they don't have an address. They live on an Indian reservation because, remember we pillaged their land and all that stuff. So, we got some voter suppression going on this week. We'll talk about that on the J Parks podcast. We're going to talk, and the Supreme Court ruled in favor of voter IDs. Kavanaugh involved in it, as per. That's why he was put there. Speaking of SCOTUS, we talk about that also on the J Parks podcast coming up on Sunday. We're also going to dive in the latest in the Mueller probe. Nikki Haley. We're going to touch on Nikki Haley for a second, but we're not going to. Today is about Khashoggi, the Washington Post reporter. So he was a Saudi journalist and a Washington Post columnist. Now, he was lured. He went into the consulate in Saudi Arabia. He went into a consulate, and he hasn't been heard from since. And U.S. intel intercepts tell us that he was lured there and is probably dead and was probably dismembered at the direction of the Saudi crown prince, that BMZ dude, Salman bin Salam, whatever his name is, the Saudi crown prince set up this journalist to be killed, to be lured to this location and be killed, according to intercepts obtained by U.S. intelligence. Now, I know I usually do the thread count on the J Parks podcast, but I have a short edition of the thread count here today. And this thread features someone called J Parks. Yeah, I did a thread. I threaded. And let's talk about it. Let's get into it on the next break right here. But seriously, this story is scary. Jared Kushner is biffles with the crown prince, and his father-in-law calls the press the enemy of the people. We need answers to this. Like, people are over here listening to Kanye West give a soliloquy in the Oval Office while Kush sits there smiling to the camera. This is the news story today. Taylor Swift vs. Kanye West 2. A hurricane hit Florida that Florida has never seen before in October. And the lower third on every cable news station is the Kanye quote that says, "Trump saved the planet, saved the world." Days after the UN said we're all going to be dead in 20 years. Not 2,000 years. Not 200 years. 20 years. The ambassador to the United Nations resigned the day after the the ethics office filed an ethics complaint against her. The day before, the ambassador to the UN resigned the day after crew filed an investigation complaint against her, and the day before the Khashoggi video hit the news circuit. We're over here talking about, does Kanye West increase voter turnout for black people? What is actually going on with us? And don't forget the craziness of Hurricane Michael hit while Puerto Rico is still in shambles. American citizens treated like less than, all because they don't have electoral college votes. Disgusting. The stock market is slipping a bit because this clown is saying that the Fed is going crazy. His Fed. He picked these people. Do you know how far past stupid you have to be to say something like this? Back to the UN ambassadorship. A candidate that the leader of the alleged free world floated would be a good replacement is his daughter that makes jewelry. She's already a senior advisor. If you think it's crazy that she'd make the short list, then you haven't been watching this unfold the past few years. Multiple times a week there's a Drumpf 2020 rally where he leads a violent mob of people into chants to lock up political opponents and that the press is the quote enemy of the people. These aren't helping any GOPers for any midterm races. It is all about his terrible stand-up comedy act. Then, a member of this enemy of the people, as we've been told, gets lured into a location and possibly murdered and dismembered. The instructions came from the same dude who claims he has senior advisor Jared Kushner, quote, in his pocket. Kush vouches for this guy. He vouches for the Crown Prince. Remember when National Security Advisor Mike Flynn was caught up in some plot to kidnap a dude? How many subplots can there be in this terrible, scary film? And if the White House was warned ahead of time, indications are that they were, then people need to go to prison. I mean, people already need to go to prison, but now this is another avenue which leads to prison. Why would someone be concerned about someone he considers an enemy? They wouldn't be. Chris Matthews just summed up my feelings on Deadline White House. I'm not happy that a tyranny run by a royal family finds a kinship with our form of government. This is not okay. It's not funny just because they make memes on the internet. This is a dangerous, slippery slope into authoritarianism. It doesn't just stop when we take it back in November. We have some heavy lifting to do after that. But it has to start somewhere, and that somewhere is November 6th. Hashtag be a voter. That was I had a little thread. Because there's a lot going on here. We got Saudi Arabians. Jared Kushner. They have Jared Kushner in their pocket. Says the Crown Prince. Why would he go around saying things like that? Did they not bail out 666 Fifth Avenue? Oh, that's Qatar? Oh, what's Qatar do? Is Qatar not a money laundering vehicle for Saudi Arabia? I mean, if you haven't been paying attention, just raise your hand and say, Jay, I'm not paying attention to this. I didn't get any of this. Khashoggi may have been dismembered. For what? And we're okay with this? And, like, they said Trump is very concerned? If he was concerned, wouldn't they have done something about it? Wouldn't Jared Kushner call his boy, slide in his DMs? What, the DMs ain't open? This is serious. A journalist was killed. And Trump is like, oh, well, we can't, sanction them because we can't not sell them weapons still because, jobs. What? Kanye West is in the White House and people are talking about that. People are actually sitting there saying, well, here's where Kanye West comes from. What? What? The fact that we would even sit here and have a discussion. The fact that there would be cameras, that there would be news, media, surrounding the Oval Office, surrounding the desk, and listening to Kanye West talk about Trump, instead of trying to figure out what the White House knew about this Saudi Arabian kidnapping. When did they know it? Why didn't they do anything about it? And what is going on now? And what are the repercussions gonna be? Americans aren't just, I hate to tell you, I hate to tell all you guys that are like, oh, fuck globalism. America, we are that. We reach out, we make all attempts to not let human rights get violated. And if human rights are getting violated, those countries get I'm not saying go to war with some country, but those countries get sanctioned, and we at least stop selling weapons to those countries. Now, if you want to go further, if you want to say, hey, Jay, weren't the 9/11 hijackers Saudi Arabian? Word on the street is that they were. Yet we're selling them weapons. Why? What's going on? So there's a lot going on in foreign policy that Trump knows no idea about, so he decided to invite Kanye West to the White House as a distraction. Nikki Haley resigning as a distraction. She wanted to resign in March when she didn't get the Secretary of State job. What about Hurricane Michael? The UN said in 2040 we're dead. Dead. We are all dead. I won't even... So it's true. So it was true about I'll never get Social Security. I can't get it if I'm dead. This is crazy. And for anybody to sit back and listen, it's not that bad. Look at the economy. Fuck your economy. Also, that's an Obama vehicle. It was on the uptick since Obama came into office. How can anybody look at any financial charts? How can anybody look at any facts and think that Trump has anything to do with the economy he may have something to do with the economy doing a little better based on giving corporations that huge tax cut. But if you notice, the GOP is not using the tax cut as a midterms talking point. They're using socialism and mob rule. And is it ironic that Trump says that while standing in front of a mob, screaming, lock them up, lock them up? Dianne Feinstein, pronouncing her name Feinstein on purpose, pronouncing it wrong. He knows how to pronounce her name. Meanwhile, painting the Democrats as like some open borders mob that want to, harass senators and restaurants and stuff. Nobody wants to harass. Nobody wants to harass. If my senator isn't voting the way I want them to, as long as it's not their private property, I am going there and I'm going to ask them why. And I'm going to continuously call up and ask why. Respectfully. I will want answers. Because that's what democracy is. You vote for people to represent you. And those people that represent you need to represent you in the right way. And right now, instead of looking for a journalist who was kidnapped, murdered, and dismembered in Saudi Arabia, instead of doing that, it's Kanye's workout plan in the Oval Office. Pete Davidson said it best. Being mentally ill is not an excuse to be an asshole, okay? It's not an excuse to go out and say all these stupid things. It's not a reason to be an asshole. But I will say this, anybody that has a red hat and writes a motto on it, like make something this again, that's them winning. That's the right wing winning, because that hat from afar looks like a MAGA hat, so we don't need a brand. We need a leader. We need leaders. And where are we going to find these leaders, you say? Well, this is your opportunity. Every single person that tells me that voting doesn't matter, I will say this to you. 70,000 votes across 3 states. Votes matter. Every vote matters. And your Gary Johnson protest vote? It did matter. And your Jill Stein Russian propaganda vote? It did matter. And I'm sorry, your Bernie Sanders write-in vote? It did matter. Because if you combine those 3, you have way more than 70,000 votes across those 3 states. So don't tell me that elections don't matter. And this is an off-year election. And we need to go on November 6th, vote Democrat down the line, get a check in Congress on this rising fascist authoritarian regime that wants to turn democracy into a kleptocracy and an autocracy. We need to get a check on them, we need to get subpoena power, and we need to run some real investigations Investigate Kavanaugh, investigate Trump's taxes, investigate Nunes. You don't even need to impeach Trump. Don't even. Just make sure he's investigated to the point where he knows that 2020 is not a thing he can do. Because there are too many idiots out there that follow that clown. And I don't trust my peers enough to go out and vote. That's why I talk about it every gosh darn week. Every week I talk about you have to be a voter. You have to go out and vote. Yes, we'll spend the day hashing out the facts on social media. We will, and we'll have discussions about the issues and the arguments. But on November 6th, we go out there and we vote, and we take it back. J Porks, Dyze in your house. J Porks here, and I know I've been a little busy on this East Coast radio stuff, talking about resist, remove, and recreational. But I gotta tell you about one more thing. You should be a East Coast Radiohead. That's right. And you can become a East Coast Radiohead just by going to patreon.com/JPorks and check out the offers we have there. There's a low tier, a middle tier, and a high tier. All of those get you bonus content, exclusive personalized artwork, and even a chance to interact with me on a personal level over the phone. We could talk about what's going on in this podcast. We could talk about how we are going to flip these seats blue in November. And we are going to vote like this is our final election, because it might be. Patreon.com/JPorks. Become a East Coast Radiohead and join the resistance.
Representing Staten Island.
Staten Island boys are no joke.